Greetings, the internet. Welcome to the first episode of what will undoubtedly be a short and horrifically chaotic video series by Nordisk Tea. With your host, Brandon, insert last name here redacted for privacy,
Thank you.
myself, Dennis Peterson, coaches this friendly neighborhood tea merchant, and much like the people that was here 1,000 years ago, immigrant here to see to them doing things properly. Oh no, good, that was an ambulance. Wait, what? I was like, yeah, it wasn't the police. And then I was like, oh, that's good. That's just an ambulance going to save somebody's life.
Yeah, congratulations.
And so with -4 karma, we can begin.
Yes.
Can only go uphill from here. As a matter of
Hopefully.
fact, we are on a hill. Behind us is Colchester Castle.
Way to dox us immediately.
Yes, absolutely.
To be fair, we did decide to record in a place that is recognizable to anyone who's been here. So.
Yeah, and anyone who can figure out how to Google Norman Castles UK.
Yeah. How many people do you think are Googling Norman Castles UK?
At least 74.
Then hopefully there are at least 74 views on here.
Oh yeah, but you have to take out like the first 28, which would just be you making sure everything went well.
Okay, right, that's fair. It's actually, all of them will be me on like 5 different devices.
Turns out changing a British institution such as tea is a little bit more difficult than you would originally think.
Especially if it's tea.
And it's not really that we're trying to change it in a forceful way. The only thing I'd really like to do is represent some of the people in this industry that are underappreciated, and some of the tea that's frankly underappreciated, which is most of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And like my job in many ways and across my different roles is just to empower people to do better shit.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between PG Tips, Yorkshire Tea, and all of that stuff is branding, right? Because it is mostly similar product. It is mostly similar like blends from these places to entertain as broad of a crowd as possible at mainly a price point that is as affordable as possible. And most of the tea we know here in the UK and most of the tea we know here in supermarkets are not made for quality, they're made for quantity and price.
Would you like to go on that tangent?
We can go on that tangent.
I like that tangent. He's gone on this tangent before personally, but I feel like this is a good one to start with.
I mean, when you have tea as a sort of commodity product and you have it as sort of a culture, the weird thing about the UK is that they're so into, in a way, they're into their teas, but they're not into teas. If you go to Europe, you will instantly find, just generally speaking, a better selection of tea. You find loose leaf tea in like in a lot of supermarkets.
There goes our UK audience.
You go to no, it's fine. It's like in the UK, they've adopted tea at this sort of staple, at this sort of like institutional thing.
Yeah.
And it becomes about what is the most efficient, like almost identity. It's more part of your. And so when all of the tea is the same, because there's frankly not that big of a difference between Tetleys and Yorkshires and like.
Oh no, I'm like at least 8% sure most of them are made in the same factories.
Most of them are made from a blend of like Rwandan, Kenyan, like Indian tea. Basically, and we're talking about quantity, and we're not going to get into like industrial manufacturing of tea and all of that, but it's mainly become a thing of like, you want milk. You don't care what the milk is. It's milk. It's like a binary thing. It's either yes or no. And so what's the most efficient, cheapest, effective way of doing that? And then the rest of it has been put into branding. Because I think Yorkshire Tea is a masterclass in how you take the most generic product and you make it so culturally ingrained. Because people will swear by Yorkshire Tea when you're forced to the same price point and you're forced to the same scale and quality of product. Then the only place where you can really distinguish yourself as a product is in your branding and your practices. Yeah. And they did this whole, especially for builders and like especially for areas with hard water.
No, I remember that campaign.
In a way, it's like banks going for like making a whole campaign like our bank is especially for people with money.
Yeah.
Or especially for people with jobs. It's like, great, you've said something that is. It's like that tobacco campaign back in the day that's like Lucky Strikes. They're roasted. I mean, all the other things are also roasted. And all of these teas, because they're like a stronger Asamica tea, do well in hard waters. as
Yeah.
opposed to something like a Japanese tea, which would scream and die, and if you put it near it. Sorry, I have a pet peeve with Japanese teas. A lot of them are really nice, but they're also fussy. And I also tried, like, I got some matcha in because people kept asking me for matcha.
Yeah.
And matcha, this is a whole separate subgenre. There's like tea companies that are just matcha because
Yeah.
it's so specialized. That's not the reason why I don't carry it, because as a merchant, naturally, I wish to provide the goods that people find value in and find interesting and help to enrich the tea culture of the UK.
Yeah.
Because I care less about just the like shoving goods
Yeah.
and shoveling goods, and I care more about trying to find ways to present and educate and create transparency and kind of bring more visibility onto some of the better practices and the better teas and the better products.
Right.
And so when I go to, say, somewhere like Georgia and I talk to some of the suppliers in Georgia, and it's like, what I want to do is I want to represent their tea in the UK and tell them about what the great tea they make in Georgia and how the great ways they're making it and their great story. And it's more like being a sort of ambassador to them and their tea rather than just being a
Right.
merchant shoving it from point A to point B.
Yeah, I like that. I think when you actually explain the context of the ambassador thing, it does sound quite nice, because I think it is something we should be doing, especially if we're taking on such a niche business, essentially.
Yeah.
I think it's good to show the history and show the process and make light to the actual people who make the tea rather than just us who sell it.
And we have to get through certain hurdles in order to be able to do it at the level that we or I would like to do it at, which means we need a certain level of volume and visibility to have the platform to promote them properly.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to be able to buy tea. It's a very boring part of the mechanics. But just in order to have the reach, to be able to reach them and to be able to work with them and be able to afford the like import and export and, the international logistics is a pain in the neck. You need to be able to sell enough of it to make, say, a pallet something tangible. Because I just paid
too much money.
No, it was like 500 euros, which was a pretty good deal, because in the UK we used to be an empire thing, so you don't pay like tea is zero rated. Most of tea is zero rated on like import and VAT in general. So that part is easy enough, but it was still like you need to suddenly order. You can't just order like 5-10 kilos, because then you have to air freight it, and air freighting it is like 50 euros a kilo. So now you have to order basically 200 kilos of tea or more, because that's what you can get on a pallet.
Right.
So now you're talking about not just like kilos of tea, you're talking about pallets of tea. And you can still do kilos of tea if you're if you have enough. And that's what we're talking about. You need enough like volume or visibility, where you need to have enough of a market of the people who are willing to pay the cost of tea that is brought in at a kilo scale. And really, really good tea, you might only be able to get at a kilo scale, but the cost of the shipping and just getting it here is going to drive up the price.
Yeah. See, I'm not massively into business. I can do some marketing. I am doing this. But when I get so lost when it comes to those logistical parts. I just get so lost. Like, if I'm being honest, I'm not even sure if that showed up on camera.
I mean,
you
to
lost
me,
me like halfway through that.
To me, it sounded like very much like, oh yes, I'm the marketing personality. I'm like, I get so lost with the business, and it's like,
yeah, I'm gonna be real. Like, my head just went.
Yeah.
I was gone like halfway through the talking of the numbers.
No, I appreciate that, because it's a lot of what I do. Like, I tried to juggle behind the scenes, because I appreciate like I've been very busy, and I did some other work when I was doing the consulting, and then most of what I was doing outside of the consulting was just trying to get all these shipments things happening.
Yeah.
We'll make it work.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to, like, while we're having a little bit of an off-cam moment here, do you want to like check in things and make sure it's still recording and all that stuff?
Thing to check. Right, we are still recording.
So now you have to order basically 200 kilos of tea or more, because that's what you can get on a pallet.
Right.
So now you're talking about not just like kilos of tea, you're talking about pallets of tea. And you can still do kilos of tea if you have enough. And that's what we're talking about. You need enough like volume or visibility, where you need to have enough of a market see that it's turned into a female fur. You really